World of Warcraft is now 19 years old, and if I did my math correctly, that means it's been able to use the no-no websites for about a year now. It honestly surprises me how a game this old, with 9 full expansions and a laundry list of screw-ups, is still beloved by so many people. I entered the world of Azeroth for the first time around the release of BFA. I enjoyed the leveling process and it gave me this cheeky flavor. But otherwise, I didn't really find very much enjoyment outside of the world quests, but I continued to play on and off up until the release of Shadowlands, which I had gotten the week of release because I was excited to experience a new expansion as everyone else was, since being with current content was something I wasn't really used to. However, like many people, I was severely disappointed. Don't get me wrong though, Shadowlands did a lot of good. The level squish was definitely the right call and needed to happen. The new time walking feature with Chromie was fun, and it let me level entirely in the expansions that I liked the most, which at the time was Burning Crusade and Mists of Pandaria. And the new Exile's Reach starting zone was a quicker, more fleshed out way to teach people how to play. But unfortunately, everything inside of Shadowlands was just not great. The zones felt too sectioned off, the campaign felt like a job. Torghast, while being something I actually enjoyed for the first few runs, was a grindy, boring mess. Shadowlands to me felt like it had completely forgotten what World of Warcraft was supposed to be, and any positive change that was made happened outside of the expansion content. So I stopped. I said to hell with it. I was not going to play a game that seemed to not care about my time or money. I was done, and I didn't think that I would look back, especially after seeing the light with other MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2. But I did come back. I came back many times. Something about WoW kept me looking into it just to see how things were going. Oftentimes, I downloaded it just to wander the continents of Azeroth with no real goal in mind. I couldn't tell you what it is, but this game is one that I loved the moment that I stepped foot in it, but could never really enjoy. So when Dragonflight came out, I told myself that I was not going to buy it. I already knew what was going to happen, but people were enjoying themselves. People seemed to really like this new expansion, so I cracked. Now, this video is for people who either haven't played World of Warcraft at all, or those who've played it on and off and don't really know if it's worth getting back into. This isn't going to be a comprehensive review of the entirety of World of Warcraft. That would take forever. More so, my retelling of giving the game one more honest go. And if it hasn't changed, then I think I can safely say that I'm done with World of Warcraft. But nonetheless, here I am, crawling back yet again. But I did decide to do things a little differently this time. In light of the overall positive reception many changes have gotten, and also because I wanted to wipe the bad taste of the last expansion out, I decided that I was going to do a fresh start. So I moved into a different realm, Hellscream, and created a new character. I decided this time to try out Warrior, as previously I had only played Hunter and all of the ranged casters. Plus, it's nice to have the option to play tank if I wanted to try out something new, or just to skip dungeon queues. I decided on the Fury spec, because the idea of this little weasel wielding 2 battle axes that are twice her size seems like the absolute definition of overcompensation, and I am here for it. Along with the fresh start, I made a conscious effort to play significantly differently than I normally do. So no more ranged DPS, now being up close and personal. Instead of being a stubborn solo player like I usually am, I've decided to do the unthinkable and socialize. And joined a guild. I've actually never joined a guild before because I like to pretend that I'm generic anime protagonist from generic video game anime. But I did quickly get an invite to one that I'm calling the Dogs of Untimely Unfortunate Demise, or DUD for short. Now, at this point of the video, you're probably asking me, why am I doing all of this? Well, it's because I want to like World of Warcraft. After experiencing so many different MMOs and growing as a player, I've realized that staying in my comfort zone often led to things getting stale really quickly. And I can't help but feel that maybe that was one of the contributing factors to why I couldn't enjoy this game as much as everyone else seemed to. So, let's get started. Now, on re-entering the world of Azeroth, I was instantly reminded of one of the reasons why I kept coming back. I've said this before and I'll continue to say it, but World of Warcraft is a timeless looking game. While being obviously dated and low poly in some zones, I can't say any place in this game really looks bad. It's an art style that won't really age, and I will always love how the game looks. But here I am, at level 10 and nowhere to go but up. I decided to use time walking to level up an expansion that I've not yet gone through yet, and that's Cataclysm. While it is just world quests, I still found it to be quite fun. To me, the leveling experience was something that I always enjoyed in WoW. Maybe it's because I got to do it with different expansions each time, but it never felt stale. Plus, Shadowlands was added to the time walking pool, which means that I never have to touch it again. I was honestly worried that I would have to level from 50 to 60 in it, and I was not going to have any of that. The moment that I hit level 15, I immediately started doing dungeons. Now, I must say I'm annoyed at the lack of a random dungeon pool that has all of the dungeons and not just the dungeons within a single expansion. It does open you up to others after 5 minutes or so, but otherwise, I still love dungeon running. Group content in general is just a lot of fun, and for the most part, it doesn't overstay its welcome. Mists of Pandaria has my favorite set of dungeons overall, but my favorite still has to be the Motherlode from BFA. However, in dungeons brings up the two biggest hurdles of this game. Dungeons themselves aren't really difficult in WoW, but you can still wipe regardless, and when you do wipe, you'll have to immediately look for another dungeon because people will likely leave immediately. Yeah, I can't say the WoW community has always been the most welcoming or tolerant of even the most minor of failures. I am, however, confident that this isn't the majority of the community, but man, you vocal few are the worst. While groups leaving was common, the toxic barrages was much less so, but even with how uncommon it was, it still left an incredibly bad taste in my mouth. And it is here that I can confidently say having a guild was nice. Not only did it mean I didn't have to wait in queue, but it was just a more friendly experience. If you have an issue with the community, then try making or playing with friends. It really does make the experience much better. Now, the second thing to kick in when I did dungeons was my absolutely horrible habit of only looking at my hotbar. Now, this is not a problem exclusive to WoW. I do this in literally every skill-heavy game imaginable. But luckily, Dragonflight added the ability to change the position of everything on your HUD. And man, it makes everything look significantly more clean. Honestly, I'm glad they finally decided to add this, as I myself like to avoid using add-ons when I can. But either way, I was still looking at my hotbar all the time. So I decided to try to take the skills with cooldowns that I was constantly staring at, and then put them in the middle of my screen during combat, which eliminated the problem entirely. I didn't even find myself looking at the icons in general. They were just there. I could see them, but I didn't need to focus on them. And I'll admit, when I used to see this in videos from other people, I thought it was really stupid and cluttered to have them in the middle of your screen, but I completely get it. And if you as a player find yourself looking at your hotbar all the time, try taking your most common skills and just put them in the middle of your screen. Now, as I was leveling up, I got to experience another one of the changes, and that is the return of the skill tree. This doesn't really need much explanation, but it does make building a class significantly more intuitive. You can even search for a buff or effect, and it'll show you all the skills and passives that interact with it, which is really nice. Now, after leveling for a few days, something did feel a little weird. Around level 50 or so, I started to feel like I wasn't playing the same game that I did. The combat felt significantly faster and punchy, which I loved. This isn't the hotbar change because I kind of felt it when I first started, and I thought maybe it was because of the class that I was playing, but I decided to investigate further. So I went ahead and remade the character that I was using beforehand, which was a fire mage. I used my Shadowlands boost to skip it to level 50 where my warrior was, and even then, it still felt significantly faster than I remembered. I already thought that this spec was fast for a mage, but since I've come back, it just feels better to play. I don't know what change was made behind the scenes, but Blizzard did something right here. Or maybe I'm just making things up. I don't know, but either way, I'm certainly happy with it. Now, when I reached level 60 and Dragonflight opened up to me, I can't really say I was looking forward to it. I will admit that the first 20 minutes did not give me much hope that this would be anything special, but it escalates from 0 to 100 real quick, because you get access to Dragonflight's biggest addition, dragon riding. I cannot understate how awesome dragon riding is. First off, you get it right off the bat. Second, the entirety of the Dragon Isles opens up once you have it. And the riding itself is incredibly fun. Taking to the skies in World of Warcraft has never felt better, and it's almost completely because of the new momentum-based flying. WoW has always been known to take ideas from other games and implement them well into itself, and it's certainly no exception here. Normally in WoW, flying is pretty static. You fly at a set speed in whatever direction you're facing, but it's dynamic now. There is skill involved, and you have to get mechanically good at traversal, and that's awesome. And the expansion as a whole really leans into it too. The Dragon Isles has a lot of steep verticality to it, and it was surely made to make flying around more fun. It's even included in a dungeon that has you flying from point to point. There are also time trials littered around the world that reward you with dragon customization because yes, you can customize your dragon too. There are 4 that you'll get just by going through the main questline, and all of them have their own customization options that you can get through either the time trials I just mentioned, boss drops, and achievements. You actually level up your flying mastery by finding these glyphs around the island, which heavily encourages exploration, which you're already going to be doing just because of how fun traversal is now. This really does feel like the next step up for traversal in World of Warcraft. Unfortunately, it is purely restricted to the new zones. Dragon riding isn't allowed in any of the older spots, which I guess makes sense. You wouldn't want to make regular mounts useless, and it's not like the rest of Azeroth was made with such movement in mind. But I do hope that this doesn't just end up being a gimmick to be forgotten in the next expansion, and that Blizzard makes this a new form of flight available outside of the Dragon Isles, and maybe opens it up to all the other flying mounts. But enough gushing about that, let's get back down to reality here. The story in Dragonflight is significantly scaled back since Shadowlands. There is an evil that is here and you'd really rather it not, so you need to go gather your friends and smack wildlife and evil dudes, get a reward, and then rinse repeat until the campaign is over. The evil in this case being the Primalists, who feel betrayed by their own because of something about Titans. Yeah, if you watched Meta before, this shouldn't be much of a surprise to you. I don't really care about the story in an MMO, but I can certainly say that I tuned in for some of the more eye-catching moments here. Especially since Dragonflight has cutscenes, and a whole heck of a lot of them too. I remember having the occasional cutscene here and there in Shadowlands, but it is a pretty frequent thing now. I quite enjoy these. It might just be a sense of novelty, since I didn't really expect WoW to have cutscenes that were not only voiced, but actually pretty fun to watch. Now, for the most part in the campaign, you'll just be helping out the denizens of the Dragon Isles. There are, of course, the Drakthir, the dragon hybrids all over the promotional material, the Centaurs, which end up having a war between tribes over accepting and offering help to the dragons, and the funny walrus people. The babies give me nightmares, and there's a Monster Hunter ripoff cooking scene. Overall, the pacing of these is pretty good too. Not one time did I feel like I just wanted it to be done and over with to move on to the next problem. I certainly don't feel like my time was being wasted at any point with any of the quests. And with very few exceptions, I liked the questing of the main story. While a lot of them you're doing stuff for the different tribes and the different colored dragonflights, it's just fun fantasy. Plus, the questing highlights why good traversal is so important too. If I saw that my next objective was 500 feet away, I would be annoyed, but here, objectives are consistently 1,000 or more feet away from each other, and it's fine because it's not tedious to get there. And to be honest, sometimes I'm actively disappointed if the next objective is too close. I was having fun throughout the entire thing, and before I knew it, it was just done. It did feel extremely short, but that also could be because of how long and tedious Shadowlands felt. But in any case, I was a little disappointed when I saw the campaign is over. I wanted to do more, and luckily there is more to do. There is quite a bit of stuff post-mainline that you're nudged to do. I honestly suggest just looking at the side quests if you don't want to do that though. At this point, one of the things I was recommended to do was to take a step back and do some of the side content and read the quest boxes, which I normally don't do because I don't care. But I tried it and I certainly can't say that I regret doing it. A lot of the side quests and stuff are actually quite fun to do. My personal favorite of them being this whole side saga about a spa center having its own sets of issues, which are not limited to just angry customers waiting in line, but also elementals that are attacking yoga classes. There are quite a few standout side quests, and I'm not alone here, as it seems many people are also quite surprised on how enjoyable the side content has been. As a whole, I think scaling everything back was the right choice. Shadowlands itself was such a cosmic setting and story that it would be kind of nerve-wracking to try to top that, and I think that reeling it all in was the right call. Going back to its baseline fantasy rather than trying to bring out an even bigger cosmic horror. But as I say that, it is kind of ironic because my favorite bit of this campaign was helping the Time Walkers. The best of which is this part where Chromie is being tossed around timelines and you have to go back in time to find them back. There's even a portion where unable to go back in time, you have to run really quickly, and I feel like it's a callback to the old Back to the Future movies. Now, with the story aside, I think hands down the best improvement were the dungeons. Every one of these is everything that I wanted in small group activities. They constantly kept me wanting to rerun them. The life pools is the first that you'll get access to, and it's probably my favorite in the expansion, followed very closely by the Nuku Defensive, where you have to fly around the plains of the Dragon Isles to stop some ritual from happening or something. The only one that I don't think I liked all that much was the one with the gnolls. I like how open-ended it felt, but I also thought that it went on for just a little bit too long. But overall, the dungeon quality is high, though the Mother Lode is still my favorite by a close margin. This next thing I kinda touched on when I was talking about flying, but I really love the Dragon Isles as a map. For one, it's all one landmass, which is a big thing to me since part of the magic of WoW is that the zones are connected and not separated by loading screens or waypoints. There's a very special feel to that. I think Shadowlands made a big mistake with having all of its areas separated so much. Even if it made sense in universe, I felt that it completely ignored the part of magic that World of Warcraft has as a game. But that's not the case here, and I'm happy that Blizzard has found the light. I also love the main city of Valdrakken. It's straight up my favorite main city in the whole game. I'd like to hang out there much more often if it didn't tank my frame rate. And they have fun with the setting here too. There is a dragon as a banker, really playing on the whole dragon horde trope. Plus, this one has a little bird that you just kind of keep around. There's also a cheesemonger dragon. I feel so tiny walking around with all these massive creatures around. It really brings out the sense of scale that WoW has, and it's just really nice. Plus, it's not Ouroboros. I don't get it. You had 4 completely different, unique themes, and you chose to make a stone donut with 2 floors. Seriously, Ouroboros was boring as a main city. I also went ahead and tried the new Drakthir Evoker class, which I honestly had completely forgotten about up until this point. And I really like the new introduction of empowered spells, which are abilities that you hold to charge up. Now, initially, I thought that they felt a little bit out of place, but I came to like their inclusion, and I really do hope that these charge-up skills are implemented in other classes. They also have a scaled-back version of dragon flying, but can only really glide outside of the Dragon Isles, which makes sense, but I still do hope that they experiment with bringing dragon flying to the rest of Azeroth in some capacity. As of now, the Evoker only has 2 specs, ranged DPS and healing, and if they do bring a third one in, I do hope that it's a melee spec of some sort. Honestly, the thing that I dislike about the Evoker and the Drakthir in general is how limited they are. You can't play Evoker on any other race, which I don't like even if it makes sense, but even more so, the Drakthir can't play any other class either, which really irks me the wrong way. Now, I have an issue with this class system in general. Even if it makes sense thematically, I don't think that your choice in race should limit the classes that you can choose, especially when it's limited to one race on each side like the Demon Hunters. But listen, as a whole, Dragonflight was a massive step in the right direction, and it recaptured what World of Warcraft was supposed to be, and I'm looking forward to future patches and new seasons. I know that I was shitting on Shadowlands a lot in this video, and I'm sure that there are people who really enjoyed it. And I don't want to ignore the fact that there are tons of talented people who put their heart and souls into it, but I really just couldn't help myself, especially after all of this that we now have it to compare to. I must admit, when they brought the Spellbreaker devs into the WoW team, I was a little worried since now there's like a fifth of your people who need to be shown the ropes of making World of Warcraft. But I can definitely see that the extra help is working, and I can confidently say that at least on the surface level, Dragonflight is an amazing expansion. Now, you're probably looking at the amount of time left in this video and notice that I haven't really talked a whole lot about what happens after max level, and that's because endgame content is a whole different beast on its own, and I'll be doing a separate video on that down the line, and I do hope you tune in for that too. But here's the thing. World of Warcraft is a game that I am always going to hold very close to my heart. And it sucks that I've hated this game for the longest time. Not because I felt that way, but because it's a game that I loved but couldn't enjoy no matter how hard I tried. I felt left out. And I know that I'm never going to experience the golden days of WoW. I wasn't old enough to be present for that. And even though we do have Classic, it's just not the same. When I joined WoW, it was on its decline. Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands seemed promising but ultimately missed out on what World of Warcraft was meant to be. But Dragonflight feels differently. It actually makes me tear up to think that I'm finally able to enjoy a game that I've wanted to like for so long. Dragonflight doesn't remove the fact that Shadowlands and other disappointing expansions came before it, but it does give me hope that Blizzard has remembered what made WoW fun to begin with. It may be 19 years old, but I feel like my own journey with it is just beginning. I have so many more friends to make and raids to beat, and I'm happy to say that finally, I've found a place in the world of Warcraft. But with all that, my name's been Koji, bringing you guys World of Warcraft Dragonflight, and this is the end of the video. I am going to go and do something else. Probably make a sandwich or something. Maybe level an alt. I'm probably going to do a Brewmaster Monk next. But while I'm doing that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe because I'm asking you nicely, pretty please. And also, enjoy the rest of your day. Or don't. I can't tell you what to do. I'm a YouTuber, not the police.
What do you want? What? Me busy. Leave me alone. No time for play. Me not that kind of orc. Yes. What do you want? Yes. Something me doing? Yes. What? Me busy. Leave me alone. No time for play. Me not that kind of orc.